I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the King George County School Board. Would you please stand for the pledge and remain standing or kneeling for a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first we have a recognition of the Counselor of the Year.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have Mrs. Fisher this evening, our Director or Supervisor of Student Services, who will recognize our School Counselor of the Year.
Thank you. It is with great honor that I share tonight. Ms. Sarah Ritchie, one of our school counselors at King George Elementary School, has been named the 2023 Virginia Elementary School Counselor of the Year through the Virginia School Counselor Association, which is our state association of ASCA. I'd like to share with you just a little bit about Sarah and her contributions to our students and community, as shared by her colleagues during this nomination process. So Sarah holds a master's in school counseling and is currently pursuing her degree or her doctorate in school counselor education and supervision. She's a very compassionate, driven, and creative school counselor, makes her school sparkle a little bit more each day. Her work ethic, advocacy for her students, and ability to build relationships have helped her develop a very robust, comprehensive school counseling program at King George Elementary School and throughout our division. Couple of things that she has done. These are just a very few. She created an after-school club called the Kindness Crew, and they focus on positive self-esteem and growth, school morale, and a community give back. The crew's projects have created a positive impact throughout the school and the community as a whole. She collaborates with families, community members, educators, and fellow school counselors, and her approachable demeanor has helped her build relationships within our community across Virginia and literally throughout the nation. As such, in July of this past year, the Board of Supervisors appointed Sarah to the Board of Directors for RACSB to be the county representative, which further, illustrates her commitment to our students and the impacts that she has had. In addition to the local advocacy here in King George and the local region, she was also recently elected to the Board of Directors for VSCA, having previously served as their Communications and Public Relations Chair. She also helped author an ASCA-aligned social-emotional learning curriculum and is working on her first children's book. Cool. And as if she has any free time, she's also recently been selected to be our division's SEL coordinator just this past spring, and part-time grant-funded position that's conducting a needs assessment of our SEL programs and will help coordinate and select the SEL curriculum and standards moving forward, as well as provide professional development to our staff for that. She's joined tonight in the audience by her husband, Brian, who's an assistant principal at King George High School, and her daughter, Maylee. So I would like Sarah, if she could just come up and be recognized for this amazing We do have a platter that has been engraved and attempted to be delivered on Friday. Offices were closed. My apologies.
Yay.
Well done.
Congratulations.
You get to come up and.
Wanted to come all the way up here. Why don't you come all the way on up here? Why
Sure.
not?
Like you do the walk-in this time.
Well done.
Thank you.
I don't think we've ever had a counselor here.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
That is
Thank you.
true. And so,
Oh, Ms. Fisher. Sorry.
All right, do we have any public or employee comments? None, none online? All right, then let's move on. Next, we have changes to the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have two that I would like to request this evening. Number one, we need to amend our closed meeting notice to include non-renewals. You guys have your handouts in front of you, and you can see following resignations and before retirees, we're just adding the term non-renewals.
Other changes to the agenda?
Yes, I'd also like to add an action item. Action item C, if it's okay with the board, fiscal year 23 budget reconciliation. We've gotten to that point in the year where at the very end of the fiscal year, we reconcile our budgets. First with the school board, then with the Board of Supervisors. We'll have to do it with the Board of Supervisors on June 20th. So we need approval from the school board this evening to allow us to petition the Board of Supervisors for that reconciliation. And I'll talk more in more depth on that when we get to it.
It's good. Any objection to adding those, obviously, those two things? All right, let's move on. Any other board members? Did you have any additions or changes to the agenda? Okay. Presentation of the 2023-2024 Student and Family Handbook.
Good evening again. So at this time of year, I share with the board updates to the Student and Family Handbook. Just for a little bit of background, and actually in the packet, there's no presentation, but this was in the packet. If you could maybe just pull that up so I can reference that. Sorry. So the Student Family Handbook, just for some background information, is a very large document that's divided into three parts. The first part is just some general information provided to the community about our school system, instructional programs, directory of information, those sorts of things. The second section includes procedural information in regards mostly to student behavior and discipline, includes descriptions of our programs and activities that we have proactively to support students behaviorally, such as MTSS, but also outlines the local, the leveled administrative responses that administrators have available to them when responding to a student's violation of the code of conduct. The third part is the actual code of conduct. And that outlines the specific school rules. You all are familiar with them as Rule 1, Rule 2, et cetera, which is just our nomenclature to categorize them. And that is based off School Board Policy JFC, which you all approve each year. Part 3 also includes the required notifications that are determined by regulation, policy, and statute. In addition, we also publish a supplemental I'm not sure if you all have actually seen this yourselves, but student athlete handbook. It is referenced in the main handbook, but because there are very specific athletic rules and regulations, we have a little supplement to that as well. So the development of this document is typically done by a work group who works throughout the year. Thank you so much. Works throughout the year to review discipline data, the programs that we have in place, the resources available to us, provides feedback and edits and those sorts of things. This year was a little bit different for a couple of reasons. First, the data collection process that has been implemented by the state effective in the middle of last year has completely changed the data that is available to us. Still great data to have, but we don't have the longitudinal data we typically would in order to compare year over year what our trends are looking like. Also, we did not have that same data during COVID, obviously. So the practice that we had prior to COVID, where we could look at year over year trends, simply doesn't exist because that data doesn't exist currently. But moving forward, certainly we will continue with that practice. Even yesterday, our administrators retreat, we started looking at discipline data and talking about what the schools are seeing. So moving forward in the next year, as we review this all year long throughout every school year, we'll begin having those conversations again. And then finally, a big driver of this handbook is in regards to legislative updates coming out of the General Assembly. There are only 3 very minor ones this year. And so the bulk of the work on the handbook was already completed and didn't require those in-person meetings. Finally, Dr. Boyd has actually kind of re-implemented administrative meetings periodically, monthly, if not more often. So there are some conversations happening in other forums that don't necessarily require us to bring together a work group in a separate meeting. You know, don't need to meet for the sake of meeting. So these conversations are happening just in a different structure than they have perhaps previously. So that being said, there really are only 3 big changes to the handbook. 2 of them on page 36 and page 46 are in regards to legislation, and it's just a tweak of the words in one and a change in practice in the other. So on page 36, that's in regards to notification by a principal or other administrator in regards to bullying. Up to through June 30, that requirement is within 5 days of the incident. As of July 1, it will be within 24 hours of the incident. So that is a change in practice that we will have to implement. Page 39, you all actually received a few weeks ago at a previous meeting, and that was no new content necessarily under Rule 9 with the computer and technology use, but a reformatting of that section to make the cell phone specific language very clear. And we do make clarifying adjustments throughout the handbook as needed. And then on page 46, the last big update is actually reverting back to what it was a few years ago in regards to whether a principal shall, which is required, report something to law enforcement or a parent, or whether they may. So several years ago, it was shall, they changed it to may, and now they're changing it back to shall. So again, a change in practice, but within King George County Schools, I would say the majority of the time that is occurring anyway, that we do make those notifications to the parents and law enforcement. If it is, you know, under the statute as a may, we do it out of precaution anyway. And those are really the only changes outside of ongoing changes, edits, clarifications that we make in the handbook.
Ms. Fisher, when will the handbook be ready for our purview? Is it in August or September, the new one?
So, so this is, we actually edit it and revise it throughout the year, but it is not finalized, the final draft for publication, until mid-July to allow for that July 1 legislation to go into effect.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Ms. Fisher? Thank you very much. All right, next we have the beginning of action items. First one we have on there is Title IV, the Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grant.
It's Mary tonight.
All right, Mary.
Hi again. So this is just the annual review of the Title IV Part A grant. We actually were here in January for the prior years. Typically that's done at this time of year every year. However, we were in our first year of monitoring last year. So every 5 years you have to be audited essentially. And we were waiting for that feedback. So last year's you all saw in January, so just 5 months ago. So this is just the annual application that includes the activities and programs, a continuation of, you know, what we've been doing for the last several years under Title IV Part A.
So my recommendation this evening would be to approve Title IV Part A grant.
Do I have a motion, or is there any discussion before a motion? Do I have a motion?
I was looking,
Is there an amount? I believe it's at, which should be at the end.
Move that we approve the Title IV Part A grant as presented.
I'm sorry, is there an amount?
Oh, I'm sorry, I
there
didn't
is,
hear
it's in
that.
the,
Usually with these, there's an amount.
There is an amount. It's 32. 30,000 and change. I apologize. I don't see.
That's okay.
It should be in the.
32,613 and 23 cents.
Thank you.
It's on page 9. So
Mr. Rolls, if you could modify your motion, just,
I retract my motion.
I move to approve the Title IV Part A grant in the amount of $32,613.23.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, next, the overview of the 2023-2024 budget. And I want to give a little bit of an apology. We changed the board meeting from Monday to today because it was my understanding from the Board of Supervisors that it was not only going to be a public hearing yesterday, but it's my understanding they were going to vote on it. But now they're not actually voting on it until the 20th. So I wanted to apologize. But we're still going to have a presentation and some possible recommendations. Dr. Boyd?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to give everybody an update, Board of Supervisors had their meeting last night, and there are also their public hearings for the proposed budget and also for the tax increase. In that meeting, it was determined that they would reconvene and meet on June 20th in hopes of approving the operating budget and whatever tax increase that they agree on. So where that puts us right now is in a position where we are waiting to hear from the Board of Supervisors. They have advertised an amount of money that they would, like I said, that they have advertised to the community that they would provide to the school division. And Mr. Vance, if you could show that quickly. So at the request of the board, I put together, if you can make it a little, well, that's nice size, but what you see at the top, I put together just a small spreadsheet quickly, just to explain. And again, I don't want to jump the gun because again, this is the advertised amount that the Board of Supervisors, I believe, intends to provide to the school board. That amount is $3,172,299 at the top. We've gone through a number of scenarios as a school board and shared with the Board of Supervisors through this budget season. I can tell you that after much deliberation, the Board of Supervisors, of course, they know that they don't tell the school board how to spend money, but they're very much in favor of supporting teacher raises, very much in favor of supporting a 7% raise for everyone. You can see that the next line down is the cost of supporting that 7% raise for everyone. And I should add the caveat that sum there, that $2,232,307 does not consider whether or not the state comes back and provides a 7% raise. That amount is if the state stays at a 5% raise. If you look down, you'll see the other scenarios. There's an option for a 7% raise for everyone if the state comes back and revises the skinny budget to include a 7% raise for all SOQ positions. I think it's important to note that if the Board of Supervisors funds us at $3.1 million and the state comes back and revises the skinny budget to include a 7% raise for SOQ positions, we would in turn have $532,757 on that right-hand side there to reapply to the shortfall that we had in the budget. So more specifically, we could use that money for some of the positions that we could not afford in this budget cycle, some of the things in the budget builder that we potentially could not have afforded in this budget cycle. That $3.1 million right now includes the larger font bolded sections there. So 7% raise for everyone. It includes some associated budget costs that go along with the raise for our staff. It also includes the agreed upon approach that we took to the healthcare increase. That was the $364,000. And then the budget builder, if you guys remember, it originally came in at a little over $1 million. We had a lot of discussion, a lot of deliberation with the school board office, and determined that it's not ideal, but we could get by with increased costs and things of that nature with lowering that right now to $512,000 if we had to. The next line down is the other items in the budget builder that are currently not included. And then if you look further down the spreadsheet, what you will see is the positions, and we've done a lot of work, had a lot of conversations with HR, a lot of conversations with building level principals. Yes, sir.
Can I just stop you there? So if we scroll back up a little bit to the non-essential budget builder, that's something you cut out of the original?
Yes.
Those, okay.
Yeah, so if you took, the original budget builder back when I initially presented the budget, the items, the stuff in the budget builder, if you remember, I don't have the number right in front of me, but it was a little over $1 million. If you took that 512,000 and that 566,000, it would add up to the original budget builder request.
So, and what kind of things are we talking about there?
Uh,
Like a little bit less of everything, or is there some things that got totally cut out?
Some initiatives got fully cut out. I think it's, again, this is all stuff. So this is potentially some software programs, hardware, subscriptions, things of that nature. I can get you a more specific list if you'd like that. As you continue to work down the list, you will see the positions that we had originally requested in the budget. And of course, as we've worked our way through this budget cycle, we have done a lot of work in talking about plans and contingency plans and other options that we can explore if we do not get the positions in this budget cycle. So what you'll see is the position on the left-hand side that we originally requested, the amounts or the salary, including benefits associated with that position in the second column. And then in the third column there, you'll see my notes on some of the conversations that we've had in our plans and contingency plans to satisfy that need in our budget, or the need that we were trying to satisfy with that new position through other means. So for example, the autism paras, as an example, that was 4 paras, 1 for each elementary school and 1 for the middle school. What we've been able to do is take a closer look at, I believe, over 100 paras that we have working in the school division, and shuffle some responsibilities and shuffle some of their workload to reassign them to some positions, to those positions, and satisfy some of those needs in this next budget cycle, if that's the route that we need to take following the allocation from the Board of Supervisors. I won't go through each of those positions. I certainly can if you'd like me to, but if there's any of my notes that aren't clear or you want further explanation on, I can provide that.
I think I have one question. You probably have one too, it looks like. I'm assuming when it's blank, that means that for sure we're going to try to, we're going to budget those for sure. Is that what?
We're trying to. And in fact, I would say number 1 on my list is that
CTE.
top one, that work-based learning and CTE specialist. I've had a number of meetings with our instruction department. I, in fact, met with Ms. Hill today. That we're making so many wonderful inroads with our workplace learning and developing the groundwork for improving our vocational programs, that we really believe that that's a position we need to figure out.
So looking at this, it looks like you have 3 priorities we're going to try to do no matter what: the CTE, the maintenance mechanic, and then the 2 bus mechanics. Those are kind of like almost half.
Potentially, yes. And yeah. And again, we're looking, as we dive into the operating budget, and you'll see a little bit later on when we talk about reconciliation, we're satisfying some of these needs right now with things like overtime work.
Sure.
When it comes to the bus technicians and mechanics, we are figuring out how to get these jobs done. But obviously, ideally, in a perfect world, hiring an additional person to satisfy those needs would be our desire.
Gonzalez.
Yeah, thank you. So the 2 school security officers, the one says grant held off until next year and the other one says grant approved and local contribution budgeted.
Yes.
What's the difference?
Okay, so the middle school decided that they could hold off on this until and apply for the grant next year. That's grant held off until next year. That's the middle school position. The school security officer below is the high school position. We applied for that grant. We received that grant. So that's good news. The way that grant is structured is the state will provide up to 4 years. I'm going to make sure I say this right. We are responsible for, they take a look at your local composite index. Our local composite index is 0.38. We are responsible for 38% of that individual salary. The state will kick in the remaining funds, and in preparation of planning for approval of that grant, we have already budgeted for, in this budget cycle, that 38% of that individual salary. And that individual salary is paid on the paraprofessional pay scale. Am I correct in saying that, Ms. Yuzerski? I'm sorry. The school security officer is paid similar to the paraprofessional pay scale. Right.
Okay, and so then for the one that, the high school one that still has the amount of 46.9 thousand there, so what is that 46 then? You're saying that's not really a realized cost because it's already budgeted elsewhere?
So the 46,000 is the total cost of hiring that individual with benefits and everything included. We would be responsible for 38% of that cost.
And you're saying that is already budgeted?
Correct.
So you could kind of cross that one off of this.
We can cross that one off. That one, I think we're going to be able to satisfy pretty
Okay.
solidly. Yeah.
What's at the bottom?
I
How
was
much?
just gonna ask that question. What's-
Grants, how much more is down
Yeah,
there?
Thank you.
So those are, originally, we had 2 full-time equivalent teachers. Those were both at Sealston because of their growing population. What we were able to do is we have a shrinking population at the lower levels of King George Elementary School. So we were able to reassign, and it's not a person, it was a position. So through attrition, we were able to reassign a kindergarten position from King George Elementary School to Sealston to satisfy that 1 FTE position. And then there's still a need of, that's what it says on the right-hand side, a specials teacher. Because if you guys remember Sealston Elementary School with Hopyard, there's about 777 students and it's still growing at a pretty rapid rate. So their desire is to add a specials teacher just to be able to work on the same type of schedule that our other 2 elementary schools are working on. Each of those schools have 5 different specials teachers, and the students work through a different special every day of the week. So in order, with the growing population of Sealston, in order to satisfy that need, we would need an extra specials teacher there. The other 2 at the bottom are paraprofessional positions at the preschool. And again, oftentimes these are driven by student needs. I can tell you Mrs. Wages at the preschool has done a very good job of really kind of diving into this with a scalpel and taking a look at her schedule. And as she's comfortable if we had to move forward right now, as opposed to hiring, this is 1.5 para positions. It's a full-time position and a part-time position. She, because of her schedule, could explore hiring a para hourly, paying them on an hourly pay scale for the time that they would work, as opposed to hiring full-time positions if that's where we are. So all of these, again, you can see are all kind of contingency plans moving forward. They're not the ideal plans. Obviously, we want and need the positions, but given the fact that we're rolling into next school year and we need to make this happen, these are the ways we're considering satisfying those needs.
All right, any other questions?
Yes. So just Dr. Boyd, just the paper you gave us here is organized a little bit differently. So trying to go back and forth between the 2 and figure it out, I wasn't able to do that and keep paying attention. So do you mind just taking us through the organization on the paper?
Yes. So what Mr. Rolls is looking at is the paper here in landscape form. What you see is, starting off at the top, in the top row, what you see is our, if you guys remember from the very beginning of our budget presentation, we prioritize staff development and investment, right? We talked about that goal 1 in our strategic plan. So what you see on the left-hand side is the initiative that's associated with that. As you work your way across each column, you'll see the different scenarios, because as you know, we've been working through this budget season where we don't have a finalized state budget. We're talking about different considerations with the local budget and their contribution, and then we're working on things within the budget like, how we want to fund and pay for healthcare and the other conversations that we've had. So what you're looking at is, I'll just go across the columns. The local percentage is the, and again, the Board of Supervisors has requested some of this information as well. So you'll see that column 1, you've got the skinny budget, 5% from the state. The next column down is if the locality made up the difference and gave a 5% raise to everyone. How much that would cost, just that initiative alone, how much that would cost King George County is $1.2 million. I'm just going to go down this first column and see if we can make sense with the others according to my explanation.
Okay.
I can stop for a question if you have.
So what's the cost column where it's blank under local percentage in the first two, then we start having numbers?
Okay, all right. So when we originally worked through the different budget scenarios, the increased and associated budget costs. So whenever we give a raise, there's an increase in retirement contributions and taxes and things of that nature. That $62,000 is the costs associated with the raise. The next column down is our cost sharing model that we used for covering healthcare. That $364,695.
Right.
So we used our process for sharing that cost between the employer and the employee. That cost us $364,000. And then the last one down there is what we shared up here on the screen a minute ago. That is the budget builder necessities, the absolute things when it comes to heating and air, water bill, diesel fuel, cost of subscriptions, everything that has gone up in our society that we are Power School, Google, all those other things that we know we have to have in order to make sure that we can move forward at least at status quo. That's that $512,000.
Okay, so if you look at that right there, that column, I'm sorry, that row, it says budget builder necessities, but then we move over one to the right of the 512,000 and change, then it's over 2.1 million. So it's a little bit confusing. Was that
okay? So all right, I'll talk you through that. So now, after you've taken that initiative column and that cost column, what you're looking at in the next 5 columns is different scenarios. So the first column is the state sticks with a 5% raise. King George County says we're going to give a 5% raise to everyone. If you work your way down, you'll see what that costs the locality. Just for the raise, it would cost the King George County $1.2 million. Then you include in the associated costs for the 62,000 basically. The next column down, the next row down, excuse me, in that same column is you add that $364,000. And then the bottom is adding in the 512,000. So basically every column is a different scenario, but every column adds in the $62,000 for the associated budget costs, the $364,000 for the healthcare increase, and the $512,000 for the budget builder necessities. And so again, that first column is 5% from the state, 5% for everyone. The second column, again, is trying to figure out the state stays at 5%. The locality does 7% for teachers, 5% for the remaining staff. The third column is, again, the state stays at 5%. The locality wants to give 7% to everybody. And then we move into the lighter shades, the 2 final columns. Those 2 columns are if the state comes back and revises the skinny budget to now include a 7% raise for all SOQ positions. There's 2 scenarios. The locality could choose to do a 7% for teachers, 5% for staff, how much would that cost? And then finally, 7% for everyone and how much that would cost.
Okay, just make sure I'm understanding this right. So if I look at that, so at the last of the three columns that begin with 5% state, you take that and go way down the bottom, we have that $3,172,298.09, which is what we say right now the Board of Supervisors is proposed to give us, right?
Correct.
So that would spend all that money getting absolutely no new positions if we did it that way.
Correct.
So, or we could hop back one to the left where we're saying the scenario of having a 7% raise for the teachers, 5% for staff as we proposed. And that would preserve, it looks like roughly $270,000 for us to be able to apply towards new positions.
Yeah, or ideally, we would move, if the state comes back and provides that 7% raise, then we would move to the the very last column. It would only cost $2.6 million, and we've got $537,000 to spend on, to recommend to the school board that we spend on new positions. Yes, sir.
Which, if I can add, that it's already been indicated to me that if that does happen and the state does come through with the 7%, that they will give us that money. But it's a vote they have to take, but I've been indicated that we would get that money, which would be wonderful.
Okay, so right now, looking at this setup, I know, I mean, difficulty I'm thinking through here is that we're not going to know what our budget is until like the earliest to be the 20th. At that point, I don't want us to be too fuzzy where we can't really make quick decisions that we need to finalize a budget that makes the most sense for us. So, I mean, I'm wondering if we can't get a prioritized list of all these things so we can say, here's how much money we have, and we can just draw the line. Below this line, those are those priority things, and then we cut those off to make whatever budget we have.
So I'll certainly follow the direction of the collective board. It would be my recommendation right now, given the conversations, the very good and collaborative and constructive conversations that we've had with the Board of Supervisors, and given the state of our staff and where we've really tried to focus on providing them what we believe we can provide them in order to retain them and attract new employees. My recommendation right now would be to use that $3.1 million to provide a 7% raise for everyone, take care of the associated budget cost at that $62,000 mark, take care of the healthcare increase, and take care of the budget builder necessities. And crossing our fingers, when and if the state comes back and provides 7% raises for all SOQ positions, we would have an additional $532,000. And at that point, it would be my recommendation that number one, we take care of the workplace learning CTE specialists, and we continue to assess and evaluate those positions and how well we've satisfied those needs through the contingency plans we've made, but ultimately use those funds to satisfy the new position requests would be my recommendation.
So
We certainly don't need to make any decision tonight, nor can we make any decision tonight.
If I can speak to that for a moment, Ms. Hogg, I understand what you're saying. I'm just looking at, and you and I with a teaching background probably can really understand this. Our original contracts that we sent to teachers back 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, was very iffy. And looking at and talking to the Board of Supervisors, looking at the direction I think that everybody's going, I think it would be very wise for us to offer or give contracts with that 7% for the teachers, because it is still possible that we could have a lot of teachers, if we don't get that or they don't get that information, we could get some resignations over the next 30 days. I don't think that's much of a gamble based on conversations we've had, based on pretty much what the state looks like, kind of a minimum level they're probably going to do. I just think that that's something we should very seriously consider so that we can stop any possible teachers thinking about leaving.
I'm putting this up as a question. Can we do that? In prior, we've not done that before.
So We have actually issued contracts before. There's always a line in the contracts that says these are, pending available funds.
Yes.
And we've kind of, and I'll just, in kind of full disclosure, and I appreciate Mr. Bush's statements on it. I've spent some time talking with HR, spent some time talking with payroll. The real, two options right here, right now are, we take a calculated risk in reissuing contracts. We don't feel as strongly as we did on the first round that we need to get these signed and sent back, because we do already have an existing signed contract. But we are taking a calculated risk in the fact that we don't have an approved budget. Now, of course, we would have language in that each one of those contracts saying pending budget approval. The other option is that we wait until the June 20th Board of Supervisors meeting where they approve the budget. And then we would need to turn around as quickly as we all could get together after that and have a meeting to approve what the Board of Supervisors has allocated and reissue contracts on or about the last week of June. Now, as far as the technical aspect of that, I've spoken with, again, HR and payroll, and we can be prepared to have all of that set and ready to go. And that operating budget starts on July 1st. 12-month employees aren't paid from that operating budget until the end of July, and teachers are not paid from that operating budget until the end of August. So just, to fully understand and paint both pictures, again, we'll follow the direction of the board, but that's really it in a nutshell. Calculated risk. But, in consideration to Mr. Bush's point, I think his feelings is, we want to communicate as best we can to our teachers as quickly as we can. But it's a calculated risk. And those are really kind of the two options that I've kind of fleshed out in my mind a little bit.
Again, based on our very strong relationship with the Board of Supervisors, yes, of course, it's a calculated risk, but I think it's a valuable one. And I think it would communicate something very positive to those teachers that might still be concerned.
But I do.
Can I just ask Dr. Boyd, which of those two courses of action would you recommend?
I feel confident in our relationship right now with the Board of Supervisors. However, it's a calculated risk. I can appreciate the concern that, our lack of communicating might not be good. It might, we might have additional resignation. I don't know what the result would be, but communicating with our staff is always an important thing to do as quickly and as effectively we can. But it's a risk. There's a risk associated with it, and how comfortable we are all with that risk is really the crux of the question. As far as our ability to implement this change in the last week of July, when we have a finalized budget, I feel really confident after talking with everybody today that we are in a good position. If we decide we're going to meet shortly after the Board of Supervisors meeting on the 20th, we have everything in order to be able to make that a very smooth transition at that time. So
if I can add something else too, we have to meet, we're going to talk about this in a minute or two, but we've got to meet and approve the budget before July 1st, no matter what. So we might have to even, I think our board meetings might have to change again, sorry, because we have to approve the budget before July 1st. I'm not saying that's necessarily part of this, but if we did, I would prefer we not wait. But if we did decide to wait, obviously we got to have a meeting anyway.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Question. We're talking about a calculated risk, but how much of a risk really is it? Because you mentioned that there's language in the contract saying that it's budget dependent anyway. So, I mean, the risk isn't really financial risk. It's more just upsetting people.
Yeah, I don't think we're not in any legal liability issues. I mean, we have the language that we need in the contracts. I think the risk is more one of ineffectively communicating.
All right. Okay. And Mr. Chair, to clarify, you're suggesting just approving, we're talking about just teachers, not the entire staff, right? For the 7%.
Yeah, those are the contracts, I guess. As far as staff is concerned, we don't really have Yeah, it would be teachers, yes.
No, it would be all
It would
staff.
be all staff, I'm
It'd
sorry.
be all staff. Mhm.
So everybody has a contract, that's right.
It'd be all staff,
You're right, sorry, it'd be all staff.
all contracted staff.
Okay.
So what's your
Yeah.
concern with
I
that?
think at this point, I would be willing to do the 7% teacher contracts, but I mean, as a means of priorities, we put together our proposed budget a long time ago, and it, very deliberately chose to do a 7% increase for teachers and 5% for everybody else so that we could fund these additional staffing requests. And we ended up getting, roughly, it depends on what assumptions you're looking at, but getting $3 million less than we asked for. So to go ahead and give an additional raise than we're already planning on, I think that just would be kind of crippling to our other priorities. I think my priority is just giving the best education we can to the students. So I think that giving a raise we weren't planning on when we're already getting less funding than we planning on would be detrimental to the priorities that we had established earlier.
I'll reserve my comment for a minute. Other board members, yes. Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes, if I could respond to that. I'm fully in support of giving the staff the raise to all staff. While yes, perhaps the teacher is the first line of defense in a classroom, all staff are required to be able to provide our students with educations. And I think if we're worried about things like morale and other things, right? Prioritizing and not giving everyone the same raise, which I know is something that the schools have strived to do for quite some time, I believe. I don't think that sends a good message to only give raises to our teachers and not to the rest of our staff.
Ms. Hawk?
I absolutely agree. And is this better now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I should put my nose on it. I'm sorry. I absolutely agree with Ms. Gonzalez that we need bus drivers, we need custodians, we need social workers, we need additional counselors, we need multitudes of positions that are not necessarily SOQ funded. It does not diminish the need or the quality of need of the educators. And I'm okay with going ahead and doing the basic positioning, if that's what we call it, to approve the 7% for everyone.
Ms. Hoover, you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, I would think that it would send a not so positive message as well to only give teachers the 7% and not the whole staff. In some cases, the custodians and the bus drivers, they already, make significantly less. So I would agree with the 7% for everyone.
I also agree with my other three board members that said about 7% for everyone. Also, I think it communicates something so positive, not just simply to our staff and to the teachers, but then also to the Board of Supervisors is how we approach this thing, which, as has already been kind of indicated, is that if we do get a higher amount from the state, there's an indication that the Board of Supervisors will give us that extra money, which is really important. And right now our relationship is good. And I know that that's their feeling, even though we make the decision and not the Board of Supervisors. They're not necessarily micromanaging us, but they are happy with our approach of paying the 7% increase for all teachers and staff, which I think continues to build positive relationship with the Board of Supervisors. So I'm also in agreement we should give the 7% to all staff members, including teachers and staff. And then also, yes, it's a risk, but I don't think it's much of a risk. And I think it communicates something so positive, and it might save a few positions of teachers still on the fence. Yes, they signed that one a month ago, but they're still waiting and seeing. And I think it would communicate something positive. So I would like to see us move ahead and send those contracts out before the 20th.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, Mr. Rolls?
Might just add, we did propose this before and we thought it through. And it's not trying to pick favorites or anything like that. It's simply, obviously, it would be great to give everybody a huge raise, but that's just not the financial reality. I know it's terrible. We have inflation is probably more like 10%, so everyone's getting a pay cut. But we don't control inflation. We just have to make the best of what we have. And so by pushing forward 7% for everyone, then that means we're spending everything we have. That means no CTE specialists. I mean, you're saying, okay, well, maybe we'll get more, but we can't bank on maybe. I think we need to prioritize as best we can with what we know we have. And then if we get the extra money later, we can just go down our list, the next few things that are on our priority list, we can get those too, which would be good. But so, yeah, again, I think it's not about, okay, well, this feels fair. It's, we want to give her the best raise we can, but, you know, supply and demand comes into play. And we've seen that where the story we're telling with the proposed budget when we did it was that how important teachers are. And so, and it's not that they're more important than everybody else, but just we have a supply, you know, demand problem. So, you know, who says, why do we pay teachers more than custodians or administrators more than teachers? You know, it's, not everyone doesn't get paid the same anyways. There's just, those things are set, and maybe there's been an adjustment since we're seeing a deficit in the number of teachers that we have. Just need an adjustment to be able to fill those positions more than others at this point. Just
Ms. Gonzalez.
I just wanted to, I suppose, counter that if we were to, you know, save that money by giving 5% to staff while we give 7% or to, yeah, while we give 7% to teachers, so that we can do things like fund the CTE specialist, which I know is something we want and very important, but the CTE specialist isn't going to do us a lot of good when we can't get our kids to school on time because we don't have bus drivers, because they've left because we haven't given them a raise. So I think to the point of trying to retain and take care of what we have when we've already got to make a ton of cuts anyway, I think that should take, it'd be my opinion that should take precedence. And then pending whatever falls out, we fill from there. And then I just wanted to, I guess, return to the issuance of the 7% contracts. It sounded to me like, Dr. Boyd, while you were really good at hedging and trying to not give me an answer, it sounded like you were leaning towards waiting until the budget is approved. Is that accurate?
You want to put me on the spot on that?
I do. You are the superintendent. I want your opinion.
I think we're safe in doing it. My only fear is miscommunication. I feel solid right now about where we sit with our communication and our working together with the Board of Supervisors. You know, the risk is that the budget changes for whatever reason. And then at that point, we would have to, you know, rescind those contracts. Again, no legal concerns, no concerns of that nature. It would just be a messaging issue that I'd be a little concerned about. But if it's the will of the board, and it sounds like it is, I'm certainly, I think we can issue contracts, you know, sooner than later.
Sounds like we probably need to, because it is my wish that we do that, but I'm just one member, obviously. Then I think we should send the contracts out now. And especially because in speaking with several of the Board of Supervisors and looking as to what will probably happen on the 20th, and even if it doesn't, we're not legally bound, I would like to see us do that. But obviously, I know Dr. Boyd would feel uncomfortable without a board decision regarding sending something out now.
Say that again.
You would need a board decision if we were to send contracts out now stating that 7%.
More of a decision from the board? I mean, we don't.
Rather than just simply a recommendation, it sounds like you would like a vote on that, or?
I don't believe I need a vote. I don't think I need a
Would
vote.
hope-
I think I'm hearing that. Do you think otherwise?
I think you need consensus.
That's what I'm saying. Well, let's just, rather than a vote, then let me hear consensus about whether you think you would like to see the contract sent out now for the 7%, or you'd rather wait till the 20th. So, Ms. Gonzalez?
So I want to open with, I agree that it seems likely that we will get the funding, and I'm all for giving contracts at 7%. However, in the absence of a direct answer, I sense hesitation, so I'm not in favor of sending them out now.
Well,
Sorry, I put you on the spot, but,
oh, you go, just go right ahead.
well, they need direction from us.
My concern, certainly I don't want to send a message to the Board of Supervisors that we're trying to second guess them or et cetera, et cetera. I'm feeling very positive about them. I have no clue what the state is doing. I'm not sure the state knows what they're doing. So my concern is how much extra work it would be on Ms. Yuzerski to have to reissue contracts. Is that a big problem, Ms. Yuzerski?
Let's talk to that, because I think it's important to include in the conversation, because that's a little bit of my hesitation, honestly.
I see you looking. I will tell you that HR will do whatever you all say to do. We'll take care of it. We've had discussions. We have a game plan. We know what to do moving forward. Being prudent, I would probably, and you all have known me for a while. Some of you have known me longer than others. I'm sticking my neck out on the line. I would be prudent and wait until that Board of Supervisors votes on the 20th.
Thank you.
In that case, I'm going with Ms. Gonzalez, thinking
The worst case scenario that the state gives us is that 2.1. Is that correct?
The worst case scenario is that the state gives us the,
That 2.183.
That's what Board of Supervisors.
It's not what the state's.
That's what-
yeah, so that,
No, that's different.
yeah. So let's see if I can
Worst
answer your
case
question.
scenario of what the state would give us. And not what the Board of Supervisors. I'm looking at the,
Our expenses, not what we get.
understand.
Yeah,
That's how much it all costs.
I'm sorry. So I'm trying to think, if the Board of Supervisors, what's the worst case scenario that the Board of Supervisors, right now, we're hoping 3.1. That's what they're going to vote on. If they don't do that, if they don't vote for 3.1, what would we get?
we don't know that.
And I understand that, but what,
And again, right now they've positioned themselves to advertise and have a public hearing for offering us the school division, the 3.1. Different things that could happen is that they don't approve the tax rate.
right, I understand that. But
Right.
if they didn't, I'm thinking of the timing of them because they have to have a decision before July 1. Is that correct?
They're going to make a decision on June 20th.
I know. So if they were to vote no, worst case scenario, they would have to come back and have another budget and another public hearing, wouldn't they?
No,
Or no, they wouldn't have to have another public hearing. They just vote no?
they can drop the tax rate without a public hearing.
I'm not talking about
do
tax
that.
rate. I'm talking about the budget itself. I
Yeah,
know.
So they could drop the tax rate and they could, honestly, I mean, we've worked well with them on letting them know what our needs are. And all of these numbers are based on them working with us on our needs. However, at the end of the day, they can totally and arbitrarily decide how much money they're going to give the school division.
Yeah, I know that, but don't they, okay, they had the public hearing for the 3.1, and then they also had the public hearing right after that for the 4 cent for the tax increase. They didn't vote on either one of those. They're going to do that on the 20th. Yes, they're connected, but then again, they're not connected because they could have voted last night on the tax increase, but they decided there wasn't a motion, so they didn't vote on it. So it has to be done at least before the 1st, no matter what. I guess what I'm saying is I don't think it's really much of a gamble, to be honest, because if they vote no on the 20th, forget the tax increase for a minute. I know without the tax increase, they probably wouldn't be able to fund it. I understand that. But if they were to vote no on our budget on the 20th, then obviously they would not vote on the tax increase, I'm assuming. But
No, I don't think that's true.
they'd still vote on the tax increase because
They could vote on they could vote on a tax increase. It could be
No
less
matter what.
than what they advertised and they could change the budget to.
But what is the law regarding them having to communicate that to the public?
So
Their
I
changes.
don't know, but I would offer for comparison, right? That we had a public hearing for our budget that was presented
Right.
to the, and we approved the budget and it went to the Board of Supervisors. We are changing the budget and there's no need
Right.
for public hearing because this is like the management of how the budget is internally handled. And I believe, I don't really know. I believe the county would be similar in that, right? They can change, right, their revenue and how much they're comfortable leaving in the pot and
You
how
have
much
the
they're going
last
to move.
minute.
Right. So they can,
Which
which they do like throughout the year as we do too.
Yeah, I
Mr. Chair.
cannot imagine them doing that. Go ahead.
I thought I understood from the email that they will avoid the tax rate on the 20th, but then I think what you're talking about as far as how they allocate things in the budget, it's called appropriating the budget. I think they plan to do it the same day.
They do.
So,
Yeah,
And that's what they are going to do.
okay.
They're going to do both on the 20th.
I think another
I'm still,
I'm sorry. I was going to say that, that to your point, and maybe something that Beth, you could speak to, is the other risk that you're concerned about is communicating this tomorrow to our staff or communicating this in 2 weeks to our staff. Do you have any feelings right now as to where we are with staffing and what type of effect that may have given the difference of 2 weeks?
Well, all of our staff, they have contracts. They've signed a contract.
right.
Typically, the understanding of the divisions in Region 3 are if employees ask to be released from a contract after June 1st, we say, we will release you once we have a suitable replacement. That would buy you a little bit of time. I feel we do have positions we still need to fill. We're not seeing, we don't have anywhere near the resignation list tonight that we had a couple weeks ago. I think it has slowed down a little bit. I think, I hate to speak for everyone, but I feel comfortable again. I think it would be harder for us to give out a contract that says we're giving you another raise, and then we tell them, well, sorry, that's not going to happen. Again, I think the prudent thing to do is to wait for the Board of Supervisors to vote on the 20th.
All right.
I'm sorry, that's probably
No,
not.
that's all right. I'm probably the only one now. I'm saying, and you guys are agreeing with the others?
She took the words out of my mouth. I was
Right.
going to say, what if we have to then retract that? Talk about morale.
That might even make more people leave.
Oh, no, I agree. I don't see much of a gamble, but I understand what everybody's saying. The sure thing is obviously the way to go. I guess I'm too much of a gambler with these kinds of,
Waited this long? I don't think,
2 weeks is going to make
not
much of a
even 2 weeks
difference.
at this point.
Right.
It's a week and a half.
Mr. Rolls?
So remind me, so for the contracts you've issued, were those applying a 5% raise to everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right, I will drop my idea. Thank you. Okay, do we need to talk right now then about the changing the board meeting?
Yes, if that's the will of the board. So just to again talk about those dates and I think we need to determine what our availability is. The Board of Supervisors is meeting on June 20th. If we look at our calendars, we would need to meet after that Board of Supervisors meeting. Just throw that out there now. I won't be back in the country until the 24th, 23rd, really. I just put it out there. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Ideally, of course, everybody's calendar is part of this conversation, but we would have the week of the 26th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th.
That's it.
And then the 30th is Friday, but that's not always a great date, but really one of those 4 days we would need to meet. So just kind of off the cuff, ideally, it may be a decent idea to move our first July meeting up to that date if possible.
Sorry, say that again, to what, like the 27th or something?
Yeah,
What did you say?
I'm just throwing out the 26th through the
Yeah, okay.
29th.
Yeah, okay.
and usually we
Next to the
meet either on
29th.
the Monday or the Wednesday.
Yeah, the 29th is Thursday.
26th.
Or 20.
I'm hearing Ms. Yuzerski
26th or
say
28th.
ideally the 26th.
You give. Yes,
Okay. Mhm.
my schedule is free on the 26th. What about the rest of yours?
Mm.
Mr. Rolls, 26th of
So
June?
you say you're back in country on the 23rd?
Yes, I'll be back the afternoon of the 23rd.
I mean, would it be good to make it a little bit later in the week so we have some time, some work days to work on things, be like 28th?
Are you not
27th,
available?
28th.
I think, given, I don't know how much we have to work on, given the discussion we've had tonight. And really, I think the work is going to come after we approve our budget with HR and payroll and making sure all of that's in order in a quick 5-day turnaround.
Yeah. I think waiting any longer, Mr. Rolls, might be a little more, each day we wait is be a little harder. I would think.
26.
I hear, I agree to 26 too. Are you okay with that?
Okay, yeah, I mean, as long as you can be ready, I just realize it's a quick turn from get everybody back.
Mr. Roll, Ms. Hoover, I'm sorry, you all right? All right, so we will officially change our board meeting from July what was it originally? The 10th to June 26th, which is a Monday at 6 o'clock. We need to have a motion, I believe. It's change of do we need to have a motion for this?
Sure, why not?
think-
I move that we move the July 10th school board meeting to June 26th at 6 o'clock at this building.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We will have the meeting on the 26th. Thank you. All right, anything else about, go ahead, Mr. Rolls.
So I just had a thing to mind. We're talking, we've been saying that what the board of supervisors was talking about approving for us is about $3 million short of what we asked for. But there's so many assumptions in going to that. It's kind of hard to remember how it all goes because we're looking at this paper here and it's really only given two different options as far as state funding, a 5% raise or 7% raise. But before we were talking about a House, Senate, and governor version. So how many versions are we down to now with the state?
We're down to one. Well, then we're down to the skinny budget has been passed. So that's the budget that the state's operating off right now. There's a whole lot of speculation and optimism in the fact that after these primaries are complete, the General Assembly is going to reconvene and revise the skinny budget to include a 7% salary increase for SOQ positions. So what you're looking at in this chart is those first three options that are at the top of the column list 5% are the skinny budget options from the state. And the final two options are the two options if the state comes back and revises the skinny budget.
Well, we're basically only changing the skinny budget is offering 7% raises versus 5%. That's essentially the difference.
Say that again.
So the main difference between the skinny budget and the 7% option is simply that they're going to fund 7% raises for SOQ positions,
There could be other amendments.
maybe more.
I think I've heard talks about, the increasing mental health services and a number of other initiatives that the Youngkin administration has could come out of that revision. But one that many superintendents are focused on right now, given the state of affairs when it comes to teaching positions and staff positions in public schools, the 7% increase in compensation is one that everyone's looking for.
All right, anything else, Dr. Boyd?
No, sir.
All right, next on it is the reconciliation. I believe you gave us a,
Yeah, so you'll see an agenda item. And again, this is an annual affair. I think when I first started this process last year, Dr. Benson had me come and take care of this process probably about a year ago at this time. I think we did it actually in August last year, but August was too late to do this. We need to do this before the end of this fiscal year. So if I could just provide some background, and this is some things that you guys know. Do you have a copy of this? Yeah, I think it's up to you.
Mr. Rolls just told me that he had another budget question. We'll come back
Oh,
to this in a minute. Go ahead, Mr. Rolls. I'm sorry.
So I was saying like we were showing $3 million short. And I guess it's based on the assumption of the skinny budget. But so I just, we have all these things that we wanted to get. So I just knowing that time's gonna be short, I just think it might be good just to ask to look at the whole list here and priority rank it so we can just say, okay, well, here's how much we got, and we can just, okay, so drop off. We need to drop off 3 million, then here drop off the bottom 3 million. That's that. Is that something that we can have, for?
So yes, I think I'm following you. And is it more in effect of, if the state comes back at 7, then we have that additional $532,000 to spend, and you would like to know my recommendation on how to spend that as far as additional items in the budget builder and additional staffing positions that were on that spreadsheet?
Right. So that spreadsheet we looked at before, was that in any kind of order? Was that priority?
No, that's just a general order.
Yeah. So I think it
A
just
prioritized list of.
But you did have 3 areas of what were blank that you felt as though those were top priority, CTE being one of them, and then the mechanics and so on. Those were.
And we'll continue. I mean, we're having conversations daily about how we can satisfy some of these needs through moving parts right now. You know, as staff resigns, as we hire new folks, as we reassign folks, we're trying to figure out how to satisfy a lot of these needs. But to your point, as we get closer to that date on the 26th, I'll make sure that I come to the board with a prioritized list of, if we get that $532,000 additional, this is how the school division would prefer to spend it.
I do want to, and I think it's premature to ask Dr. Boyd to get details at this point. And certainly, we also don't want to be a micromanaging board that just as we don't want Board of Supervisors micromanaging us, we certainly don't want our supervisors to think that we're micromanaging them. So bottom line is, you know, that yes, Dr. Boyd certainly will do the same kind of prioritizing, but I don't think we should ask for details down to the nitty-gritty level. I think that's inappropriate.
Well, we have a proposed budget before, but now, obviously, without being, if it's not prioritized, then how are we going to make a last minute decision on what is included in the budget and what's not?
Well, I think what Ms. Huck's saying is that we will listen to Dr. Boyd's recommendation.
Right, we'll have that.
And
Anything else, Mr. Rowles?
No.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think that point is that it's not really a last minute decision. It may be us making the decision of like a final stamp of approval, but it's been in the works and in process and will have been being refined for quite some time. And that is why we have, you know, hired and empowered our superintendents to make those recommendations to us. So, I mean, I think we've already gotten, well, maybe not in order, a prioritized list of what should be funded at this point in time and where the highest priority needs were. So that's all.
I felt to some degree that was a great list that you gave.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for doing that, because I know that took some time.
I guess to clarify, I mean, it's just as everything that was.
That's everything that we had in our original budget request,
Right.
and how we intend to satisfy them given where we are.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Anything else, Mr. Rowles? Okay. All right. Sorry, Dr.
Okay,
Boyd,
yes,
go ahead.
sir.
The reconciliation.
So back to your agenda items, you have what I guess I would call a recommendation sheet from me, and followed by a budget transfer form. Again, this is an annual process. I did this in August of last year, but here we are again. The topic is the fiscal year 23 budget reconciliation. And I'll just provide a little bit of background. Fund 250, again, that's our operating school budget. Of the school's annual operating budget is divided across 6 categories. So those categories are instruction, technology, administration, health and attendance, transportation, operations and maintenance, and facilities. And at the end of each fiscal year, between our finance managers at the county office and in the school board office, we have a final transfer between the aforementioned 6 categories within Fund 250. So again, this is money that we've already budgeted for, but we're moving from one category to the other. And the budget amendments are completed to ensure they are assigned to the correct expenditure category. The attached document communicates to the county finance officer 2 things. Number 1, or A, final transfers, and B, amendments needed to reconcile between categories of fiscal year 23 operating budget. What we need tonight is school board approval prior to the June 20th Board of Supervisors meeting, where they would provide approval. This is needed so that the county finance officer can begin their process of FY23 closeout in preparation for the final audit and compilation of the comprehensive annual fiscal report. So again, this is an effort and a partnership between the school board office and the county office to zero out our funds and make sure that our funds and allocation in those funds are in the correct order prior to our annual audit. And what you'll see on the budget transfer form is where we're taking that money from. And again, as is typical in school divisions, we take that money from mostly instruction, and it's titled salaries right here because we have, we use terms like breakage and just additional money that we have in our salary line because we've been unable to hire certain positions and so on. And then we reapply those to places where throughout the year we had increases in costs above what we initially budgeted for in that allocation category. So my recommendation would be to approve the budget transfers and budget amendment as presented, and I can certainly pause there for any specific questions that the board has.
Questions?
So where is it presented? It's just a sheet right here?
Yes.
So is some of this money like for the scoreboard thing and all those things, is this?
No, this is not for the CIP.
This has nothing to do with that.
No, so this is money that we are budgeted for at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, that is in the entire Fund 250.
Right.
But Fund 250 is broken down into those 6 different instructional categories.
This is money.
And so throughout the year, depending on what happens, and I'll give you an example of one. What you see on the top here is where the money is coming from. The money is coming from instruction, it's coming from salaries, and where the money will be transferred to. So the first one down below that says salaries and the amount of $30,000, that specifically is for homebound services. So in this past year, for example, we had an increased need to provide additional homebound services to students. So in order to rectify that in our budget for the audit, we take money from the instruction line or the instruction appropriation category and put it into the line that would satisfy homebound services. And that's what we've done down the line.
It's reconciling your budget like we all do with our home budgets and everything else. All right.
You ready for motion?
Yes, unless there's any more questions, I'm ready for a motion. If somebody would like to make one.
I recommend that we approve the budget transfers and budget amendment as presented.
Second.
I think we need a motion rather
Discussion?
than recommendation.
What?
We need a motion rather than recommendation.
That's what she just did.
I made the motion.
You said you recommend.
Well, no, the motion was to recommend.
This is Dr. Boyd's recommendation.
She,
Yeah, we need to move on it. So you
okay,
move that we accept the recommendation.
in other words,
I move that we approve the budget transfers and budget amendments as presented.
Second.
all right, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Boyd, appreciate that. All right, any more? I believe that's it for the action items, discussion items. Ms. Gonzalez, I believe this is just a file. Did you make any more changes to that look at?
No, so the file that we reviewed, or well, no, that's true. I added one thing. So
Okay.
the parts that were highlighted last time are all just not highlighted in this version. So it's the same. All I added is on page, I think it's on the last page, page 4. I added a recommended or like an evaluation timeline. So I made a generic timeline that could be applied annually. The dates will change, right? And so we can walk through this and then I have the dates we can jot down that I think apply based on our own calendar for this year. But so basically I broke out when this, so I thought at the first meeting in July, or by the first meeting in July, right, the superintendent self-evaluation and the stakeholder survey, the superintendent self-evaluation will be due to us. I just realized I missed the stakeholder survey to the staff. So I need to add in there by the end. The first step, that would be at one before the first meeting in July, which would be by the end of the school year. So I need to add that. Would be issue stakeholder survey to staff. And then by the first meeting in July, we would have the self-evaluation from the superintendent provided to us. And then the stakeholder survey would be issued to us to take. Then by the second meeting in July, do we have 2 meetings in July? Did I screw this up?
Not typically.
Usually.
We had 2.
We did.
We do have 2 this year. That's why I said that.
This year we had
Yep,
2
we do have 2. Okay.
Usually, last year we canceled one of them.
Yes. So by the second meeting in July, we would have all completed our stakeholder survey, which we would have been informed with feedback from the survey and then the superintendent self-evaluation. So by that meeting, we would take the survey ourselves. By the first meeting in August, the survey results of our survey would be compiled and provided to us that we could discuss internally in a closed session. And then I have an asterisk on the first meeting in September or whenever SOL data is available. We would get the SOL data provided to us. So the asterisk is there that says dates may shift based on availability of SOL data. At the second meeting in September, we would review the SOL data and finalize our superintendent evaluation, which would at that point in time have all of the required components. We would finalize that in closed session and then provide that evaluation to the superintendent at the first meeting in October. So I need to update and add the stakeholder survey issued before that. And I should change the language from Dr. Boyd in the last one to the superintendent. The superintendent.
So Ms. Gonzalez, this is something you make those corrections, you just give it to Cheryl to put in as the file. I don't believe there's any
Yes.
voting that needs to be.
And then, yes, so we will need to adopt this. And then the only other thing is I think Mr. Rolls wants to revisit the goal 3 on page 2.
Correct. I brought it up with very little success last time. So would you care to present this time, Mrs. Gonzalez, in your words?
Sorry, what was that?
So I brought it up last time with very little success. Would you like to do it in your words this time?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, so Mr. Rolls has stated his case and won me over. So I guess my only question, Dr. Boyd, I'm going to look at the feedback that you put in an email to make sure we're on the same page with the language. What I'm going to look at it. Terminology. Okay. So I believe the recommendation, so the first one, we would want to decrease the number of unfilled vacancies by 20% from the preceding year. I think we agree on that. And then we need to discuss the language for the rest. It would be instead of increasing the number of certified teachers by 10%, we would decrease the number of uncertified teachers by 10%, which is not to mean we remove people, but the balance shifts, right? Does that make sense?
Right, because getting rid of them doesn't do it. So what if we said instead would decrease the shortfall in certified teachers by 10% over the preceding year? That way it's, if we need 100 certified,
Shortfall.
then I guess he doesn't have to do anything. We're good.
But then we'd be exemplary. We would have no shortfall.
Yeah, for perfect, or you can do better than perfect.
There's no percentage to look at if there's no.
Right.
Right. It's just, it's a criteria to aim at. So
But we're not perfect, so we're fine.
Right,
It'll work.
is that okay? I mean, so to the point, just for the purpose, since the math, the back and forth, right? I think Dr. Boyd, your description was if you have 10 unfilled vacancies, which I think was based on Mr. Rolls' example of 100, right? If you have 90, is that right? Is that what you meant? If you had 10?
Yes.
Okay. If you had 10 unfilled vacancies the preceding year, then the goal would be to only have 8 the following year, meaning you would have decreased by 20%. And then if we have 10 uncertified teachers in the preceding year, then you'd have 9 the following year, which is not an increase in 10% because that would put you at 99. Right. But it's really a decrease
10.
of uncertified by 10%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So
Sounds good.
okay, so it'll be, that one will change and decrease decrease the decrease the shortfall.
Reduce.
Right. Oh, yeah, reduce the shortfall of certified teachers. by
Okay,
10%.
reduce the shortfall of,
Uncertified.
Of certified.
but it's really of certified teachers, the shortfall of certified teachers by 10% from the preceding year.
Yes.
Decrease the shortfall of certified teachers by 10% from the preceding year. It could be, Mr. Rolls. Why do you want it to be reduce the shortfall?
Of course, if it's certified, it wouldn't be a decrease, but I mean, we went through all the math last time. Do you want to do it again?
No, it's the language. It's the decrease the numbers.
Math is why. So
It's the words. I think it should say, if I were up to me, I would say we decrease the number of uncertified teachers by 10%. I'm there.
it creates a math problem. We talk about the number versus the shortfall, the difference between where we want to be and where we are. And I can give the example again.
Wait. Hold on. I didn't mean to do that. I thought, hold on. Decrease the number of uncertified teachers. No.
We're talking the number as before, because we said 90 becomes 99.
No, I know, but it's still right. If you say decrease the number of uncertified teachers by 10%, that's what you want. You were stuck on the words. You thought it made it sound like we were going to like fire people. That's not what we want to do. You want to just have more certified teachers.
Well, it's really, because yeah, you don't want to be firing people. So just the difference between the total number of certified that we're supposed to have and the number that we have.
What? Difference in, say it again?
I thought we just had it. Can we
We
just?
did. We did, except that
We're just taking out the word shortfall, right?
I don't like the word shortfall.
You put reduce.
Because if we're 10 short of what we have, then we're going to get down to 9 short of what we
you
need.
say reduce the number of uncertified teachers by 10%.
We're not necessarily reducing them, we're just reducing the shortfall between how many we have and how many we need to have, because we could just convert one of those uncertified to certified. We didn't get rid of an uncertified teacher, we just reduced the shortfall.
You can also just reduce the number. The shortfall is a number.
Dr. Boyd, do you know what you're going to do?
You know what I'm going to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. We've had a discussion.
So anyway, I need to make those few updates, and then I recommend we could bring it back at the next meeting and approve it.
Okay.
I want it to be final before we
Oh, that's
approve it.
fine.
I want the language
You're
to be
good.
done.
And
We don't
I
have-
think,
there's-
and I think the approval thing, especially in all these things, when it has to do with Dr. Boyd specifically, is to just be sure Dr. Boyd understands it and you write it down in the way that he understands it.
We place it in the file.
And we place it.
Well, I just mean, it's not just this conversation, I realize.
No, there's
I
other
need to
things
add
too.
2 other
I understand.
things.
You're
Sorry,
going to do
it's a
that and bring
work-
it back the
It's
next
a work
meeting.
in progress.
All right.
Get there.
Thank
Okay.
you. I do appreciate all the work that you do.
Got it.
I've said that many times. All right, let's move on. Resolution to authorize the nomination of the school board. This was mentioned last time, if you remember, for this lab school. So if you would, board members, if you would open that up. Okay, I think there's 2 things with this. One is that it's a resolution to authorize the nomination and then actually the nomination. So let's look first at the resolution as was written down. If you're all looking at it there on our board docs. And basically, do we need to read through this? You want to give everybody a second to look at it again? It was what was presented.
Are we going to discuss who's going to do it first?
Well,
or how
let's
do you wanna
look-
do that?
I think there's 2 things. First, we want the resolution to authorize it and then the actual nomination of somebody. I believe there's 2 things we need to do. So let's first look at, because I think we'll probably have at least one person that would be willing to do it, and probably a nomination. So let's first of all, the resolution. Any questions about the resolution? If not, if I could have a nomination, or excuse me, a motion to adopt the resolution.
I make a motion to adopt the resolution to authorize the nomination of a school board member to serve on the governing board of the Academy of Technology and Innovation at UMW.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. All right, now, do I have a nomination for that person, which also includes or should include whoever agrees to be nominated?
David, you want to sign a copy of that?
Sign, yes. Oh, you want me to do it right now? This instant? Okay. All right, I'm doing it. Okay, do we have any nominations for anyone that would like to serve, or you can nominate yourself, obviously?
Well, so I would love to do it, but I will only be on the board through the end of December. So if there's if no one could be interested in before then and you want to, someone else do it in January, that's cool. But if someone else is interested, I think it would make more sense for a board member who is
I
going to.
am interested in being on the committee or on the board. And I've actually written the bio. Is anybody else interested? I don't want it simply because if somebody else is interested.
I nominate David Bush to be on, the board. Sorry.
It sounds deeply interesting, but I'm all for you taking it.
All right.
I'm in the same position as Ms. Gonzalez. I would love to do it because I was excited about it in the first place. But yeah, my term, since I firmly believe in term limits,
Mhm.
will end in December.
I was thinking the same thing. And both of you guys would be fine on it too, but since your term is ending, I don't think it's very good to change in January. It's not a wise thing.
Yep.
All right, well, I accept the nomination. I guess we need to vote on it though. All those, if there's no other people nominating, all those are in favor of me serving, David Bush serving on the board for the Academy of Technology and Innovation at UMW, signify by saying aye.
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 I vote aye for myself. So we're signing this, and if you'd give this is the biography that I think has to go to, what was her name?
Rebecca.
Rebecca. That's right. Thank you. All right. Last is the governance and norms and protocols. There's only a couple of items in there, and I believe that it's in the board docs. Make sure it's there. I'm almost sure. Yeah, it is. All right. Mr. Rolls, I believe you and I discussed ahead of time, you were going to make a recommendation for a change.
Right. I think unfortunately, we don't have the portion of the superintendent's contract here to compare it with, but if you all recall, I think the contract said that we have to do a evaluation at least 6 months prior to the end of the fiscal year. Whereas if you look at Protocol 18, it talks about the board evaluating the superintendent annually prior to June 30th. So it's not really congruent.
So I had asked Cheryl to change it to as per his or her contract. Makes it very simple.
But I would also add and CBG-F because there's some very specific language in there about the evaluation,
all
about the
right.
formative and
Point.
summative.
Yeah, in other words, her, the process
CBG-F.
CBG-F, yes.
Did you get that, Ms. Renko?
CBG-F.
Perfect.
Thank you. Yes. As long as we're there, I didn't put this as another item, but the one just below that that says the school board evaluates itself on the second to the last meeting of the calendar year. I would like to, we've already talked about this in the past. I would like to use the norms and protocols as our self-evaluation. I'll develop some sort of rubric or something to self-evaluate, to evaluate the self-evaluation for the board. But it may be before the second to last meeting. I hate to, when it says second to last meeting, it's like we got to do it in that meeting. I don't know if we necessarily need to change it, but I may do it in October rather than waiting until the end of November. I don't necessarily need, we can keep this like it is, or we can say on or before the second. Is that agreeable to everybody? I just, when you say the second meeting and identify it, too many things can go on that meeting. So maybe we should change that. So Ms. Renko, what does the board think? Maybe change it to the board evaluates itself on or before the second to the last meeting of the calendar year.
Yep.
Just add on or before, that's it. And then I will develop a rubric probably sometime in October for us to look at, and then we'll have a meeting about it. Okay?
All right, should we make
ahead.
specific motions just to have it in writing for each of those so it's clear? All right, so I'll make a motion for 18. And so I move that we change Protocol 18 entitled When and How the Board Evaluates the Superintendent to read, the board evaluates the superintendent annually as per his/her contract and CBG-F.
All right, we're doing them separate. All those in, or excuse me, seconded first.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion carries. All right, the next one is on 19.0. The school board evaluates itself on or before the second to the last meeting of the calendar year. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Those two changes are made. Thank you. All right, next, committee reports. Let's start with Ms. Gonzalez.
I have none.
I have none.
I have none.
None.
I'm none.
Oh my, I think this is a first. This
It's
is
like
great.
school's out or something.
Yeah, school's out. That's it. All right, superintendent report.
So we've talked about this week. It's a busy one. I did just want to mention that we had a great collaborative effort yesterday. We had our first, which will be an annual leadership retreat. UMW gave us the opportunity to use their big conference room with all the big screens in there. And we spent the entire day beginning with schools telling us a story with their data. We revised and worked on a lot of feedback for our strategic plan, updating our goals and objectives. We had Brad King come in and answer any legal questions that our building level administrators had. We talked a lot about how we're going to roll into next school year with a division-wide theme, which is going to be I'm determined. And then we ended the day with tabletop exercises on crisis situations and scenarios. Each school had a different crisis that we gave them at the beginning of the exercise. They worked through our crisis management plan and then shared out to the group on how they would respond to that particular crisis. So all in all, I think, it was a wonderful day. It was an exhausting day. It was a day that took a lot out of us, but looking at it on the backside, I think it was a day well spent and one that moved our division forward. So I want to thank everybody that helped pull that all together, and I look forward to doing it at minimum annually. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, and we'll go to board comments. I go to Ms. Gonzalez.
Actually, I don't have any comment this evening. Just gonna let it go.
All right.
I have only one request coming from several members of the public who had contacted me about specifically how the school calendar days are developed. And rather than go back and do all of the searching that I could do, I'm going to ask Dr. Boyd if you would just do a quick summary of how that school calendar required number of days is developed and what it includes and what it does not include.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Ms. Hoover.
First of all, I can't say your name, but thank you. Thank Ms. Y. Thank you for all the work you've been doing the last few weeks. I know it's not been easy. And I would also just like to say that I've heard feedback from summer school and the kids and the parents are very pleased. I know it's only day 3, but I've had a lot of positive feedback. So thanks. That's all.
Mr. Rolls.
No comments today.
Well, I have a couple of them. First of all, I'm real happy to see the Counselor of the Year. I think that was fantastic, Sarah Ritchie. Wonderful. I know she's already left, obviously, but that was really good. Also, Dr. Boyd and I had a meeting earlier today, just in regards to looking, as we've talked about as a board, not just simply 5 years for a CIP, but looking at 10, 15, and so on. So we had a discussion with several individuals. I don't need to go through all of them right now, but Board of Supervisors mostly and others, about all the projects that we've been talking about that will be out there in the future. We don't need to go through all of them now. I don't think it'd be appropriate, but I just want to tell you that we're moving forward with the things that we had discussed rather than just looking at 5 years, but which the Board of Supervisors wants to do too. So this isn't just us. And I think the community would be happier. And I know the teachers are going to feel much better about this. So you'll be hearing more about that as it progresses. But it was nice that we are moving forward with that. And that is all that I have. I think everybody got this, whoever makes the motion for the closed meeting. There was one small change, but can I have a motion to go into closed session?
I move that pursuant to State Code Section 2.2-3712A of the Code of Virginia, that the board convene in a closed meeting to review hires, resignations, non-renewals, and retirees as permitted under Code Section 2.2-3711A, number 1 of the Code of Virginia.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, chair votes aye. We're in closed session. session.
I move that we return to open session and certify that pursuant to state code section 2.2-3712 Delta, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the public body.
I second.
Do you certify?
Certify.
Certify?
Certified.
Certify. All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. We're now in open session. All right, action resulting in the closed meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the personnel that's presented?
I move that we approve personnel as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Approved. All right.
That we
I'm,
adjourn.
I'm sorry, I just thought I had to say. Do I have a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. We are adjourned.